right, he's with us here. That's the best segue you've ever had, Bradley.
Oh, it's fantastic. In fact, I'm busy on my computer entering the competition.
Let's have a look at the grid. A bit of a shake around in race 1 for round 6 of the championship. Keith Kasuki's put the XB GT Falcon on pole from Andrew Medicki. Jim Richards, Eddie Albanese alongside in another of the XB GTs. Then Paul Freestone. And you'll notice car number 18 is not John Bowe. It's Stephen White, the V8 Ute driver. Now, we should point out, John Bowe did practice the car yesterday. There was an incident in practice whereby he was wanting to go to the pit lane. He was being directed to go to the paddock. He disobeyed an official. The official was struck by the car. The lady is okay. John's apologised, but the officials have excluded him from the weekend. So points leader coming in, the guy who's won more races this year than anybody else. The real potential here is for Jim Richards, who's third on the grid, to make up serious ground, and we have a championship on our hands for the last 2 rounds.
Well, that's one thing. It's going to certainly tighten it up. And Richo's qualified in P3, and he is. It's a tough circuit for him, though. Very horsepower orientated, Sandown. So we'll have to see how it rolls.
And that is the Keith Kasuki Falcon. That's the car Glenn Seaton drove, you might remember, a couple of years ago. And having a chat around the paddock, I'm hearing numbers of 700 horsepower coming out of this thing, and 250 k's down the back straight here, which is not far away from a V8 supercar. It just finds it a little bit harder to get it to the ground.
I'll bet you Moffat wishes he had that sort of horsepower back in the day. I mean, they are a fantastic looking car, aren't they? Two-door Falcon. It was the stuff that dreams were really made of in back when Moffat and Bond finished 1-2 at Bathurst. I think it was 77?
77, correct, in the XCs. And the Aussie cars have been competitive in TCM. Of course, the American Mustangs and Camaros have really been the backbone of the category since its inception back in 2007, as they all line up on the grid. So it's Keith Kasuki in a Ford on the front row with Andrew Medicki, highly experienced open wheeler and touring car driver in the Chevy Camaro that's owned by Bob Middleton. Jimmy Richards, as you mentioned, in the Falcon Sprint, the 289 cubic inches. What he gives away in engine capacity, he makes back up in terms of under brakes and all-round driving ability. The guy is a superstar of Australasia motorsport, and he starts alongside Eddie Albanese in another of the XB GTs. This car was crashed here at Sandown last year. It's repaired, it is back, and it is ready. Greg Crick too in the Charger. He's always a contender, and Stephen White takes over the John Bowe Dunlop Super Dealer Mustang. He started, having never driven this car, he'll start from 7th. He's only 2 seconds away from pole. Not a bad effort. One of the most historic venues in Australian motorsport. Turns back the clock. Touring Car Masters away. Jim Richards is away trying to find some free track down to turn 1. Well, it's 5 wide in the middle of the pack. The Porsches are trying to find themselves some space, but it's Andrew Medicki who leads. Greg Crick locks the Charger up, makes it around turn 1, but Medicki through the lead. Kasuki, the pole man, is back to 3rd, and Jimmy Richards has got some work to do.
Well, this is always going to be a tough ask for Jimmy. The car is not quite as fast as some of these others in a straight line, but really, really good on his tyres. And so we'll see some great racing, some of the little Porsches there. This is a tough circuit for them, which is all about horsepower here at Sandown Park.
Up and over the rise, down the back straight, jump on board the SLR 5000 Tirana with Jason Gomersall.
And look at the vibration, the wipers moving in that car. Amazing.
Up and over the top.
And you just can't believe how fast this is. And then it's a big break and back to second gear. You see these cars are all jumping on the throttle, but what will happen in a couple of laps, tyres will start to give way a little bit, and then horsepower, it's pretty hard to put down on the ground, and that's when guys like Jim Richards hopefully will start to come back at a few of these guys.
12-lap race here at Sandown, 1 of 3 for the weekend for TCM. They were at Sydney Motorsport Park just a few weeks ago on Father's Day for the annual Muscle Car Masters, and Richards is already starting to work his way forward down the inside for 3rd spot in the Falcon Sprint. Freestone next in that distinctive Camaro. Wayne Mercer out wide. Gomersall follows him towards the gravel.
Which is very difficult. You know, you see a guy brake and you think, wow, he's going in deep, and you brake a little bit later, and next thing, you're both arrowing off the circuit.
Rule 1, don't watch the guy in front.
Yeah, don't use him as a brake marker.
Back on board with the Tirana, and a couple of years ago, TCM opened up the window in terms of the year eligibility to get some more Aussie-built muscle cars in, and I hear there's another SLR 5000 coming, and pretty keen to get some XU1 Tiranas beefed up and competitive and back on the road again, which would be fantastic because they were the giant killer of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could breathe on them a little bit and get a bit of bit of grunt out of them and have them competing in this, it would be fantastic.
Steve Mason, that number 3 Mustang fastback. Mark King here in the red Camaro. But it's pretty willing in this tail end of the top 10 and just outside as well. The Porsches love this last little segment of corners, but then they get to the straights and there's no chance. Greg Keane in front of his wife Amanda Sparks, and they better look after one another this weekend in racing because they're parked next to one another on a plane for 8 hours to Singapore next weekend. If it goes wrong this weekend, that could be a long trip. Here's a move down the inside. Tony Karamfilovsky in that Mustang that he debuted a couple of rounds ago. We've seen him in an Alpha, a Falcon, and now he's in a Mustang, and this is a really nice car. Glenn Seaton's done a little bit of the driver development work on this machine. It looks the part, and he's starting to move his way up onto and into the top 10. Kasuki, in fact, has broken Gavin Bullis's lap record from last year by 0.2 of a second. Here's the front. Andrew Medicki leading the way.
And he's ever edging up towards Medecki. I think there's a chance that he's going to be on him in another lap or two.
And Kasuki's a guy who's been in TCM for a couple of years, took over this car that Glenn Seaton drove a couple of years ago. John Bowers done some driver coaching with him, and run by Dick Savvy, who's running a range of cars in TCM. This thing is a jet. Remember seeing it at Bathurst a couple of years ago. No one could touch it in a straight line. How about Jim Richards? New lap record, a 1:16.20 that time across the line. He might not have engine size, but boy, that thing still goes.
Well, Richo, if you had $1 for every lap you'd done around here, you'd actually be a pretty wealthy guy. He's doing a great job. I mean, one of the things I love about this class is these are the cars that have been around forever. See, Cricky there, getting his car sorted out. He's climbing all over the back of White in John Bowers' car.
So you've got Falcon, Camaro, Mustang and Charger all together here. And although this category's for old cars, don't be fooled. Lots of the bits in them are worth a bit of money and quite modern. No one can touch that XP GT down the back straight. Abonisa in P4. Back to the front, Medicki leading, Kasuki going with him. And the last round of the championship at Sydney Motorsport Park, we had 3 different winners, and Medicki was one of them with John Bowe and also Bill Pye, who made a run in a Porsche 911. But it's been Bowe who's dominated the season in this car, Mustang Sally they call it. But as we mentioned earlier, if you've just joined us, John Bowe has been excluded from the weekend. Stephen White is taking over this car and will run it for the weekend. How about the flames from the Charger? Mopar goes okay. Man,
someone needs to tell Cricky how expensive fuel is, and they can tune that up a bit so it's not burning all that excess fuel that's running out of the exhaust.
Hey, Richard is catching here. He's taken another couple of sets. Stephen White goes off at turn 1, doesn't make it any further, gets to the grass and will rejoin. He's still finding his way. He's used to driving a V8 Ute, so this is completely different. All a last-minute call-up, and he and John Bowe both share the backing of Dunlop Super Dealers, so hence that's the link to put him into this car to fill in and wave the flag this weekend. Let's have a look again. Oh, it was Greg Crick who lost the rear. A little bit of a tap. Saving on, he could save on fuel, but he could also save on rubber. White just moving across the braking zone a little bit, but Crick was already going.
Well, in fairness to Crick, he was trying to get out of the way. He realised he'd gotten in too deep, and he was way out that side, and Whitehead didn't quite see him, and so he moved across, and there was a touch.
Rory O'Neill's Porsche, they were worried that this car had some problems that might not start. It made it to the start. It will not make it to the finish. He's parked where, back in the day, the old pits was based in that element here at Sandown, but it's Andrew Medicki who leads the way at the moment. The Camaro man is out in front, but don't count out Jim Richards. He's coming on strong. Half race distance at Sandown. Well, problems at Sandown for Keith Kasuki. The XPGT Ford was contending up front, dicing with the Hall of Famer Jim Richards, but he's just rejoined because of this Brad Jones. Down to turn 2.
And look at the back wheel hop on the Falcon. He's locked the rears, and it's chatted like that, and he hasn't put his foot on the clutch, so when the thing's rolling around, it's stalled and it's filled the engine full of petrol, and it took him forever to start it.
This was Wayne Mercer in the Ford in front. Jason Gomersall again follows him off. They're getting used to this. Where one goes, the other does.
Just got a big star on the windscreen as well.
This is where Mercer ended up, though. He spun to the inside and made some contact with that guardrail. Wilson security signage not too secure when it's made of polystyrene and getting hit by a Falcon.
John McMillan will not be happy about that. Good shot of the Wilson security flying through the air, though. Nice
rotation. I think it's 5.2 for the landing, though.
Good slow-mo.
And then the guardrail's coming. Wait. Uh-oh. This will leave a mark.
Ooh.
And that's a really good show of the absorption of the guardrail from the energy of that car, and then bang, stops. He has managed to get it running, but out in front, Andrew Maniki still leads. This is Stephen White, who is on board the John Bower Mustang. He's sitting position 7 at the moment with 4 laps to run.
John Bower is the man you speak of, and JB is standing here in pit lane. We know why, but do you believe the punishment fit the crime?
Oh, I mean, I always try and play things with a straight bat, and I was in the wrong, so although I was quite upset last night about it all, you know, the main thing is that Leslie, who's the girl I ran over a foot, she's okay, and you know, if you do the crime, you do the time. So that's what I'm doing. Although I've got to say, watching this, it's much more nerve-wracking than driving it.
You're dancing on your toes here.
No, I know. It's like sending your firstborn to a first swimming carnival or something. You know, it's really, really quite jittery.
Thanks, JB.
Thank you.
And while JB was jittery, Greg Crick was off the road. The Chargers managed to resume, so a few of them have been caught out today, Bradley.
Well, he's had a few braking problems, and that's back in the usual area. Lock the rears, as we see he's spearing backwards off the road.
He has got going again, but he's back to 14th. And when Jimmy Richards got delayed by Keith Kasuki's spin, he lost about 3 seconds on that lap, and the margin to Andrew Mediki is now 6.38. So that is a race-winning margin for Mediki to bring it on home. As Crick ended up parked down at turn 1. Here's Stephen White, who is filling in for John Bowe this weekend. Tony Karamfilovsky up in front. So the Mustangs run 5 and 6. Mark King next in the queue from Jason Gomersall. Steve Mason 9th, but he's the leader in the pro sports category in terms of the championship points. 2 classes in TCM, the outright cars for over 5.1 litres, Class B for up to 5 litres. But really, Brad, when you're at Sandown, if you're in this category and you don't have a V8, it's going to be a long afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It is.
Back with Jason Gomersall in the SLR 5000 Tirana. Mark King in front. Yep.
And in the V8 supercars, those curbs we just had a look at, the guys, I mean, they stay off that inside one there, but they use a lot of curb. But it's not so easy to do in one of these cars. These are a bit different. Back in the day, they didn't, you know, have the suspension quite as strong, and they didn't have them bump steered quite so well, so they were a bit harsh. Cricky's given it away. I'd say he's had a big enough scare twice with that lock into the rear brake, and he'd be explaining to his mechanic exactly what the problem is there, I should think.
It sounds like that's been shut down. Great car, and they're still developing it and bringing it along, but it's the really tried and true performers that continue to perform in TCM. And hey, I did a bit of a sweep of the pit lane this weekend. I'm hearing there's a Chev Monza that's going to be prepared for this series. That's something a bit different.
Yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? That'd shake them up a little bit. Something different.
We like different. Oh, Eddie Abelnisa here losing a spot. Karamfilovsky's down the inside, so this new Mustang is moving forward. And while we talked of new cars, Bill Pye's got a new Camaro coming along. Gavin Bullis, the former TCM champions, coming back with his Mustang. That should be back for the next round at Bathurst. And of course, TCM will round out their championship at Phillip Island in November. So I can't wait to see these cars down at the island. But we're on the penultimate lap here in race 1, round 6 of TCM at Sandown. It's all about the Fords here at the moment. Falcons, Mustangs. But up front, it's a GM product with Andrew Mediki at the helm. His margin's 9.9 seconds, Brad. He's got this one pretty much under control. But Stephen White, just a reminder, JB still owns this car. Don't ding it.
Yeah, on the radio.
You're laughing evilly.
Yeah, I know how it feels. It's not easy watching your car when someone else is driving it.
Is that how it felt when he used to drive your cars?
I was in another one, so I didn't get to see him that often.
Last
Great
lap.
job.
Yeah,
Stephen.
it's done very well to just step into a car that you've never put your backside in, and it's completely different and foreign to everything that he's been driving of recent times. Of course, such a great pedigree, Steve White, in open wheelers, both here in Australia and overseas. Went away for quite some time in his motor racing career, but never lost the passion and has worked his way back into it. Runs in the V8 Utes with a car that's got an entry from Erebus Motorsport. But back to the front here, Andrew Mediki's wondering, where is everybody?
And he's barely touching the curves, just scooting across where he needs to. When you've got a lead 11 seconds, pretty easy to be pinpoint accurate.
And he's going to pick up where he left off last year. There were 2 TCM rounds here at Sandown last year. He won the last race in the last round of the championship. So the return here to Melbourne and to Sandown will fall his way. So Andrew Mediki off the final turn. This will be another win, his second of 2013. Andrew Mediki picks up race 1 of the weekend. Daylight second. Jim Richards, well, he's really second, isn't he? But it is a long way back. Did set a faster lap of the race than the Camaro, but the margin was just too much. And well done, Paul Freestone. That's a great drive. Home in third in the Camaro. So a drag to the line. Stephen White might grab himself a spot here. P5, and he gets it.
Absolutely.
Great job. In the Dunlop Super Dealer Mustang, Jason Gomersall has not made it to the line. The Tirana's looped it within sight of the flag. Top 10 finish has gone begging. What a good day to be a Tirana man. And he has to wait and watch as they just all go by. Let's have a look again on board. Whoa, that went a long way in. Straight out through the sand, through the grass. Lucky nobody was going already through the final corner.
You know, I suspect he might have had either a suspension component brake or
I think I heard him say no brakes then in that
Yeah.
little bit of in-car just at the end. So Andrew Mediki picks up the win, cruises home by 13 seconds. Steve Mason, the debuting Andrew Adams, and Greg Keane round out the top 10 in another interesting Touring Car Masters race. Of course, coming up, though, the V8 Utes, the bump and bash. They've been on holidays for a couple of months, but they're back racing. Race 1 is coming up soon. We'll have the inside word, too, from pit lane at a very big weekend in the opener for the Pertec Enduro Cup. There is lots going on, and we set the grid for the Wilson Security Sandown 500. It's a massive weekend in Melbourne. Plenty still to come.